Welcome, the one, the only Cooper Mays is with you. This is the Vol Report with Cooper Mays, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. A lot to talk about. Look back on Austin P, and then the SEC slate opens with Florida. It is an exciting time. So we'll talk about, Cooper, what you think of Florida here momentarily. Let's take a look back to the Austin P game if you can, and just your thoughts. I know you're on the sideline and you haven't been able to play with the injury, but your thoughts on how the day unfolded with the weather delay and some kind of out of sync times with the offense. What were your thoughts on what happened against Austin P?
I would say the weather delay didn't really help any. Everybody's ready to go play, and then boom, you have a 30-minute delay on your game. So it kind of messes everybody's mojo up a little bit. And then after that, it just kind of seemed like we were a little bit out of sync. It wasn't like we were doing anything egregiously bad, and we weren't doing anything great, obviously. But it just seemed like we were a little bit out of sync. I mean, nothing crazy bad, but just wasn't connecting on all cylinders or hitting on all cylinders.
Sure. I guess the good news, if you want to look for a silver lining, is that in the Virginia game, there were a couple of passing plays where maybe there was some out of syncness in the first half, and then it got remedied. In the end, this game was never in question against Austin P. So the ability to right the ship during a game is a credit to you guys as leaders and the leaders on the football team.
Well, that and I would say the defense.
Yeah.
I think the defense played extremely, extremely well. I think they were hitting on all cylinders. Personally, I mean, there was little small things here and there, especially at the end of the game that made it look a little bit different. Different, but for the most part of the game, probably a good part of 3 to 4 quarters, the defense was very, very dominant. Like they couldn't really do anything. So that was a big thing that helped the offense with when we were sputtering a little bit. So it all ended up being okay, but wasn't our greatest performance.
Coop, what's funny about that game yesterday is there's kind of an approach that a lower level school can have when they play a big school like Tennessee. Because let's face it, that's a get a check game, to help their athletic department. So they can either come in and be conservative so they don't show a lot for the rest of their schedule, or they can throw everything, including the kitchen sink, at a defense. And I really thought that's what they did. So your all's defense had to face a lot of multiple looks.
Yeah, they tried like two behind the you know using their wide receivers to throw the go ball,
The double pass, yeah.
the double pass, and they used that twice. Um, Nothing else really seemed like it was working that much, but yeah, they were doing a lot of different stuff. I think obviously if you watch their sideline, you know they came to play, came to win. So definitely wasn't like they were laying down and just letting us have it.
I know nothing is surprised you about this defense because you told me it was going to be really good. But I admit I'm surprised by how deep and good the front seven is. How would you describe their play in the first two games?
I would say dominant. Like you said, I kind of thought that from the beginning. I've played a lot of good defenses in the SEC, so I kind of know I know how it feels when you play against the best of the best, kind of. And I know that since I've been in college, they're one of the better D lines and front sevens that I've faced, and I've played against some like historically really good, like at that Georgia my sophomore year, 21, I guess Georgia 21, that defense. I mean, people talk about that being one of the best defenses of all time in college football. So I've played some really good defenses, and I know that they're right up there with any of the ones that I've played.
That's pretty impressive. So that's pretty high praise. And at what point did you see that in the offseason? Was it all the way back to spring camp, or was it preseason when they gelled? Or
I would say probably fall camp. I think fall camp. It's just like the combination of them playing hard and the style of which they play. Like we've talked about it before, they play very vertical and cause a lot of disruption. A lot of the defenses that I've played that I'm talking about that were some of the better defenses that I've played, they didn't play like that. They were just like uber talented, and they two gapped and figured out which way the ball was going, and then made basis off of that. But our our whole philosophy on defense is just make disruption and and cause havoc, and they do that. So credit to them.
I want to get to Florida and a couple more questions about the Austin P game. The Vol Report brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. Go to cityheatandair.com. Integrity matters, 50 years in service. You might have somebody else that's fly by night that says you need a whole new system, which would be like 5 digits, tens of thousands of dollars. Maybe not at City Heating and Air Conditioning. Integrity matters, 50 years in Knoxville. They'll take care of you. Cityheatandair.com. Going back to the Austin P game for just a second, there seemed to, as far as the being in sync, there were some either drop passes or uh, let's say errant passes, however you want to look at it. But as far as the passing game, how important is it for everybody to get back on schedule, back on the same page with Florida coming up?
I think it's important. You don't want to go down to an SEC opponent at their place and not have a rhythm going. So I'm sure that we'll focus on it all week in practice, and we'll be all good. Just working out the little kinks in the armor and stuff. I think there's just you know different things early on in the season that don't go right. Sometimes you have a day that it's not your best day. I don't think it's anything that is indicative of a problem that we have, but you know just got to work out the little fine little wrinkles, and we'll be back on track.
So for those that don't know, Coop is a guy who is very centered, very strong in his faith. So I know this has been a tough time, but talking to him, I also know that his head's in the right space. But can you describe the emotions of missing a couple of games, not only for yourself, but as a leader and wanting to be out there and help Tennessee be the best they can?
Yeah, I mean, I think we touched on this last week. It just feels weird. It's hard to go out there and not be able to play. So I don't know. It just hurts me to not be out there with my guys and not be able to really be in on the action. It kind of just, I don't know, takes you out of it a little bit. But it's okay. It's not the worst thing in the world. There's a lot worse things that could be going on.
Yeah,
So
I think I told my wife there was some issue that came up, and I said there are people that have to carry, and you've been there. You were in Africa last summer. I have to carry the big jugs of water to have water for 2 miles on their head. So there are greater challenges in the world, and I love your perspective. As far as Florida, I know you're hopeful to get back this week. And I'm just curious what you think of the Gators so far this season.
yeah, I didn't get to watch their game last night. I'm not sure who they played. I watched their game versus Utah. Um, gonna be a dogfight down there. I'm sure. I mean, no doubt about it. Anytime you go down to the swamp, it's gonna be a hard physical game. So I'm thinking that they're gonna come out playing fast and physical. I know that they've got talent all over the field. I'm sure Florida always does. We'll dive deeper into the film and more about their scheme and everything tomorrow. But Florida's Florida, so you're gonna have to go out there and earn it one way or another.
At your age, was that the ultimate rival for Tennessee? Because I think it depends on how old you are. If you're like 70 plus, it's Vandy. If you're like 60 to 70, it's Alabama. And then if you're my age, 42, 38. No, but if you're my age, it's probably Florida. So as you grew up, who was the main rival in your mind? Did you have one?
The main one, I don't know. I don't know. This may be me being young, but I may be right. I felt like we always got beat pretty bad by Alabama when I was young.
Hmm.
Okay, so I didn't feel like me as a young child, like I didn't watch that game and like think, oh, we got to win this one because I kind of thought we were always going to lose because I was when I was young, I was like, this isn't a rivalry. But I always remember watching the Florida games. I always remember, and like it seemed like we didn't win much of those either. But it seemed like we always came a lot closer, and it was a really good game. So I was always watching those games. But I think that was the big rivalry when I was young because I think Tebow was big back then. Eric, I mean, there was a lot of big things going on in that matchup.
Yeah, and how big was that game last year? Because you guys really, I thought, pretty much dominated the game, but through some plays by Anthony Richardson, they were able to stay in it. Hail Mary pass, but it was a game that wasn't that close. It didn't feel that close. How big of a confidence boost was that last year to be able to beat Florida at home?
It was a big confidence boost. I think we went in and expected it though. I mean, I think that was more. I think that was like a stepping stone for us. I think we went out there and kind of knew that where we wanted to get, it was a necessary step that we had to take to beat them. And I think we knew that we were going to beat them when we went out there. I think there was the ultimate confidence about us. And I think, like you said, I think the score was a lot closer than the game felt. Personally, I think they couldn't. I thought personally, I thought it was. I wouldn't say one sided. I wouldn't say that by any means. But I think that we controlled the game.
No, I agree. I mean, if you just watched it and didn't watch the scoring plays, the line of scrimmage, it felt like, I don't know, like a 30-13 type of game, or maybe 35-13. It didn't seem like it was very close. But as far as playing on the road, the challenges of communicating with the center and quarterback, how difficult that can that be? Because Florida is probably one of the top two or three loudest places I've ever been to.
It's difficult depending on the game and how the game's going. Especially when you get down in an environment when it's a close game and you're a big time opponent and they're a big time team. I mean, there's no question about it. It's going to be loud. So you got to know what you're doing and have a good communication and good relationship with your quarterback, and then it'll all be okay. And it'll work itself out. But definitely it's hard, especially depending on the place you play. I think Georgia last year, that's what killed us really. I mean, it wasn't as much them beating us on the field of play, but it was more of we were jumping off sides, couldn't get our communication right, and then that kind of stalled out our drives. So, it can change the game if you have the right crowd involved.
You've called me out on a couple of like stupid football sayings that we in the media use sometimes, and I love it. And one that I'm aware of that gets used way too much is, you got to go out there and get off to a good start. Nobody says, "Hey, let's go out there and lay down in the first quarter and then take over." So of course you want to get off to a good start, but potentially taking the crowd out of the game, is that something that's a goal that is discussed in an away game?
I don't know. I don't know if anybody like verbally says it out loud, but I think when people are talking about you got to start fast, I think they kind of imply like let's take the life out of them before it gets started. I think the best way to beat somebody is if you take control early. I think especially on the road, like you said, if you don't let them get, I mean, it's nobody wants to start fighting a uphill battle on the back end. So I think on the road, especially, I think if you look at LSU last year, I think that's kind of how we did it. If you
Yeah.
go out there at the beginning and you take control of the game and don't let anybody get motivation. I mean, just as much as the crowd doesn't want to get excited when they're down 14-0 at home, the players are feeling the same way. The players are like, dang, we might just get beat today. And then it trickles and then you know how it goes. So
Yeah. Not a good place to trail early. Um, just your thoughts on Ollie Lane. He's stepped in now 2 games deep, and I think he's played pretty well, but I trust your eye better than mine. And just your thoughts on how he's played.
I thought he's played good football. Personally,
Me
I
too.
thought I think he's done a good job of getting everybody on the same page, and I don't think there's been many mishaps out there. Um, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but
No, you're good.
yeah, no, but I think he's done a really good job at playing his role and knowing his part, and I think he's done well with it.
And then Andre Keurig steps in at left guard. What's been your thoughts on him?
I thought he's played well as well. I think kinda it's hard for anybody else to see because y'all are watching a different copy of the game because y'all are seeing from the top down, but you can't really see his footwork or technique or anything, but he's doing a lot of the things the right way and held up well in pass pro, I think. I think he's done some good stuff in the run game as well and finished. So, I think he's done well.
Yeah, you're going to give me a copy of the all 22 though, so I can watch coverages and all that sort of thing, right? You can send that over.
I think you get dude, honestly, I think you can go to one of these websites and buy it or something, or get a membership.
I've got enough on my
What's
plate.
what's that grade thing? What do they do for the grades? The people
Pro,
that,
is it Pro Football Focus? Is that what you're
yeah,
talking
PFF. I think PFF does it.
about?
On
Okay.
the test.
I'm gonna trust you. I've got enough on my plate. How about that?
Well,
It is. I'm curious how just in the community when you're out, how have expectations changed over the past uh, year with what you guys did last year? I mean, nobody would have complained about a slightly out of sync offense against Austin P a year ago because it was still a win and it was never in question. And now people expect you guys to go to Florida and win. Do you feel that in the community when you're out in the community that the expectations are different than they were this time a year ago?
I don't know about like feeling it out in the community. I don't know, but I think you're right. Like, I don't know. I'm so busy. I don't really get out in the community. I guess a little bit as much as possible. But I don't.
Cooper, the nomad center.
Yeah, no doubt. Looking for berries, hunting and gathering. But I think when you win more, everybody expects more. You know, they say the hardest part about winning is, or the hard about. Oh golly, man, so young of sleep I got last night. Hardest part of being on the mountain is staying there, not getting there. So I think, like we talked about, I think a couple shows back about how you're going to get everybody's best game, and you know there was evidence of it last night, I think, as well. So
Yeah, they did basically everything but call middle of the game onside kick. I mean, they pulled everything out of the hat. Well, I know you're excited to eventually be back. It'll be Florida this week. I know that's a big game for you guys. And Cooper, we can't thank you enough. It's brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, the Vol Report with Cooper Mays. Integrity matters. 50 years in East Tennessee, and I'm telling you, cityheatandair.com, where you need to go. For Coop, I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.